I would like to introduce Mr. Stevens. He is your Civilian Corps Chief. So you guys, if you don't know what your Civilian Corps Chief is, he is like your 2-star general. He represents you up at all of the GO level for AMEDD. And he is very passionate. Well, he served as your Corps Chief for 9 years and getting ready to retire. But that doesn't change his message. He's very passionate about education, especially of our civilian staff. And then he's going to talk a little bit about where Army medicine is going, because he's in all of those meetings. So without further ado, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Carmen. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. So yeah, I'm the world's worst formal briefer. That's why they never asked me to speak from up here. I just slept over there. And so that's just the way that goes. So there are no rules for this. I don't have slides. I don't do slides. And I would also tell you that I want you to stop me and ask questions wherever you are in the thought process, and please don't ask me to remember the question, because at age 72, I'm going to forget it anyhow. So just the way it works. I see the Penn State shirt back there. Go Buckeyes.
Yes.
Huh? Yeah? You go, girl. All right. Yeah, I grew up in Ohio. Did you grow up in Ohio? Where? Toledo. In Toledo. Okay, I grew up in Newark, commonly known as NERC. Yeah. My mother used to send me T-shirts, N-E-R-K-A-H-I-A, which is exactly how it's pronounced back home, right? NERC, Ohio. So it's very, very, very informal. Please do stop me and ask questions whenever you have one. Don't be shy, because obviously you figured out already I'm not. And so I've told the commander on the way over, I'm still a 3-trick pony. Anybody here that heard me last time I was here, like 6 or 7 years ago? Okay. So there are certain parts of the presentation where you're authorized to sleep, because the parts of it are relatively the same, but the environment is different. The environment we're working on around Army medicine right now is very different than it was 6 or 7 years ago. And so I'm open to that. There are no ground rules on the questions. There are no limitations on what you're allowed to ask about the questions, none at all. I promise you that I will give you ground truth as I know it. But you have to accept the fact that ground truth in today's world has a date-time group associated with it. It's changing fast enough. Even the NDAA stuff is changing fast enough that I can't promise you that the answer I give you today will be accurate tomorrow. Changes overnight. I mean, changes since yesterday. They briefed the secretary and the chief yesterday, and the number of options to be considered and so on changed like that. So what can I say? So, okay, everybody okay with the ground rules? Okay, good. So let's talk for a little bit about NDAA. Because if there are best and worst cases in this, just like everything else that you think about. And when we plan for things, what do? Do you plan for the worst case or the best case? Best case, okay, that's great. You're confident, right? Okay. Is there anybody here who plans for the worst case? Yeah, okay, look at the numbers. Okay, so the worst case is usually what most people plan for. But I would tell you that at your level, where you are in the AMEDD organization, worst case for you will be almost status quo. That's kind of the bottom line. If you're worried about that, I think at least certainly early on, the status quo will be what you see at the treatment level. Because when you stop to think about it, medical care is what? It's eyeball to eyeball, right? It's still one-on-one, no matter who the headquarters is. And that's really what the question is we're trying to answer right now, right? Not whether you're going to continue to care for your patients and do the things that you do now and that sort of stuff at this level. You're going to. That mission is the same. How many of you get my Corps Chief messages? Okay, how many of you actually read them? A different number every time. It never fails. But if you read my last Corps Chief message, what did I say at the last part of the first page?
Oh, now that one's a tough one. Because you normally have about 6 or 7 pages there. So.
No, not normally. Normally the normal most is about 3. There have been a couple, like the last one, and the one that we did on talent management was a 4-pager, solid, one line, So yeah. Yeah. Okay, but it's a constant lie that you guys already know about, right? So what can I say? And I understand that they get longer and longer, but the truth is, with this much change in the environment, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you. It'd be like a sin of omission, right, as opposed to commission. So yeah, but in the message, I gave the first page to NDAA, right? And at the end, I said what? It doesn't make any difference who the headquarters element is, because the mission is still the same. Our mission, and you can put in all the pretty words and all the other stuff that we do around Army medicine and all that kind of stuff, but the bottom line is that we take care of soldiers and their families, and when I say soldiers, read not just green suits, but light blue and dark blue and white for the Coast Guard, all that. We take care of soldiers and their families anywhere, anytime, oftentimes under circumstances nobody else in the world would accept, and we do it the best in the world. That will not change. And isn't that the essence of what we do? That's the bottom line. So, from my point of view, that's the real bottom line. And frankly, if that ever changes, then you got some real questions to ask. But I don't see that changing. Okay? So up front, I would tell you that. But it does make some other questions come up. Like, if you think about the membership on our team, well, who are the members of our team in Army medicine or military medicine? Who are the members of our team? I just gave you part of it, right? Light blue suits and dark blue suits and green suits. We have soldiers, sailors, and airmen as part of our team. And not necessarily here, but go to Launch Stool. You'll see blue and light blue uniforms walking around as part of the staff. Go to Brooke Army Medical Center. You see light blue and green suits walking around as part of the staff. Okay? So we have uniformed personnel as part of the team, right? They're first. What else? What was it? Yeah, pure civilians, folks who've never been in a green suit. How many of you never wore a green suit or a light blue suit or a dark blue suit? Okay, so pure civilians, that's half your folks that are here right now. Okay, so you got uniforms and pure civilians. What else? Contractors. Any contractors in the room? Okay, yeah, we do have contractors, and contractors across Army medicine. Normally, we try to hire the contractors to do the parts of our mission that are not permanent. Things that we have to do to accomplish the mission now, and then once that's done, the contract should go away, and we'll bring them back again if we have another requirement, that kind of thing. But they are part of the team. They're not the primary part of the team. There's one other group, and some of the folks that let me in the door, they're part of that group, right? It's what I call the hybrids, okay? How many of you are prior military? Okay, so you and I are the hybrids, because we have a foot in both camps, right? And sometimes we're schizophrenic about it. I am. Well, I've spent 30 years in uniform, right? I spent 30 years in uniform. I have 4 years as a contractor, and now almost 17 years as a civilian. So I'm 50 years plus with Army medicine, but all in different parts. So I've experienced almost all the different parts of it. I couldn't experience the pure civilian because I never got that far. But in our team, when you have a team like that of people that are from different backgrounds, sometimes it's a little bit harder than you might imagine to amalgamate them into a team, a solid team that does everything, is focused on the mission, right? Now, retired sergeant major, right? Who? Okay, so you and I, are you the oldest soldier here besides me? Probably? Okay. Okay. So in the old days, yeah, right, I got it. In the old days, before we had all this digital firing crap that we use to fire mortars and artillery and stuff now, what did we have? Well, what do we do if we were firing a mortar? We'd put the base plate in the ground, right? Put the tube in the base plate. We put legs on that puppy, level that baby off, right? And then we do a bunch of calculations, right? Because we had to know how ranges and all that kind of stuff. But the last thing we do before we would actually put anything in the tube was what? Well, no. Hopefully the praying started before that, okay? And I agree with you on that. But no, we'd look for Private Schmedlap, right? Schmedlap was the youngest kid in the unit, and we'd give him 2 big sticks, look like barber poles with nails in the bottom, right? And he'd go out and he'd put one on the left and one on the right. Those were called aiming stakes, exactly. And if you fired the mortar between the aiming stakes based on the calculations, you had a pretty good chance of hitting your target. If you fired outside the aiming stakes, what did it become? Hopefully it was a misfire. Yeah, we don't want to do that on purpose. No. But it's what the media calls. What's the media call it? The media calls it friendly fire, right? How many of you have combat patches on your right sleeves of your uniforms? Okay. Any idea that friendly fire is? Is there anybody here that believes that friendly fire is friendly? No, it's not. There's no question about it. And it reminds me, there was a scenario about 3 or so years ago in New York City where a guy was angry with the judge in one of the courts. And he ran into the courtroom and he ran through the security and all that stuff, and he had a semi-automatic pistol in his hand with 8 rounds in the magazine. He had a second magazine of 8 rounds in his hand. He put 3 rounds in the judge and ran outside towards the Empire State Building. The police chased him down. There was a firefight. The guy, put 3 rounds in the judge. He never got to the second magazine, and 9 people got shot. What's wrong with this math? Think any of those people thought that was friendly fire, even though it was the cops chasing the bad guy? No, it's not. It's not friendly fire. I mean, it's not friendly. It is fire, but it's not friendly. Yeah. So it's very interesting that we have that sort of a scenario that we have, and the cultures of all the different members of our team are different, right? Because if you sign up in the uniform, what do you sign up for? Go where they tell you, when they tell you, as many times as they tell you. Move 21 times in 30 years. I'm 72 years old. I just finished paying off my first house because when you move 21 times, you don't buy any houses. That's just the way it works. Okay, so it got all that going, but good career. I mean, I had a great time and a lot of good assignments and all that kind of stuff. And oh, by the way, every time there was an opportunity to get promoted, I got considered. I didn't always get promoted, but I always got considered. And see, but for our civilian staff, it's a different culture, right? Because you can decide to stay in the same place, buy the house, be in the same church, same schools, family around, all that sort of stuff. It's a different sort of culture. But there are differences too, because when you go, as a civilian, if you want to get promoted, you have to go into USA Jobs, find the job, get your resume ready, make your resume match, get the resume in, get it accepted, get on the list, get to the top of the list, get an interview, get selected for the job. That's 10 steps that I just named, and I am a logistician, not a personnelist. Yeah, if you ask the personnel people, they'll tell you that there's at least twice that many steps. That's just the way it works, and it's okay, it ain't wrong. And then there's the hybrids, right? Those of us that are hybrids, we're schizophrenic. We got a foot in both camps, and we are praying that the 2 camps do not have us by the feet making a choice, a wish, right? Because we understand both sides of it, and it's a very interesting perspective for me. Any NBA fans here besides me? Am I the only NBA fan? The Sixers don't count anymore? No? Okay. Well, it's okay for me because I come from the land of the San Antonio Spurs. Yeah? Who are the most successful NBA franchise over the last 20 years. Most victories, tied for the most championships, and the least amount of people in trouble. Except for when Dennis Rodman was there. Okay, so no, yeah. And it was very interesting to me as I watched the team. And when Tim Duncan retired, now Timmy he's a great player. He'll be a first-round choice to the Hall of Fame, all that. But when Tim retired, how many interviews did Timmy do? Did anybody know? How many? Yeah, he did. He did one. Yeah, exactly. He did one. That's right. And it wasn't even with a sports entity. When he did his interview, his interview was with a guy he went to high school with who runs a talk radio show in his hometown in the Virgin Islands. And I would never have known about it if it hadn't run in the San Antonio Express News. They printed the interview. And so as I was reading through, I got about 2/3 of the way through, and I ran to my desk to get a magic marker so I could highlight the stuff that he was talking about. Because what Tim talked about was this. He said, isn't it amazing how we took all these kids from all over the world, read different cultures, right, and became what we are, the best NBA franchise. And it was very interesting because you stop and think about it. The kids on the Spurs were from all over the world, right? Tim's from the Virgin Islands. Tony Parker, France. Boris Diaw was with them at the same time. He was from France also. Bobo was from Croatia. Manu Ginobili from where? Argentina. Yeah, not Italy. And Patty Mills. Patty Mills was from Argentina, or from Australia. So now you got 6 different countries represented as a minimum. And for crying out loud, Popovich is from the Air Force. And talk about some different cultures. And yet they all came together and they became what they were. And why is that? Why were they able to do what they did? The mission. That's exactly it. They had a common mission and they all focused on it. In fact, the next couple of paragraphs down after what I just talked to you about, in the interview, Tim talked about the sacrifices that the members of the team made to contribute. Millions of dollars in pay cuts and all that sort of stuff that they took so they could bring the right players in. And that's just the culture that the Spurs had. They've always had that. It started with David Robinson, for crying out loud, back when. And it just was interesting to me how that sort of parallels what we do in military medicine, because they have a great mission. I mean, for them, that's a great mission. But what about our mission? You know, the greatest thing any citizen can do for their country is to defend it. And frankly, it doesn't make any difference if you defend it in a green suit or you defend it in pinstripes or in scrubs. Doesn't matter. It's all part of the same team. And the team can't function without all its players. And it's particularly true, has been particularly true in Army medicine. What percentage of the MedCom is civilian? Does anybody know? Take a guess. $60%? That's an excellent guess. 64%. 64% civilian. Yeah. Really interesting to me. But we as a team in Army medicine, and it's true across the Army, by the way. I've checked it with other folks outside of Army medicine. So if you think about that, folks have different perceptions of people in different cultures. Because we bring people from different cultures together, what oftentimes happens? What? Everybody's going like this, like you know, but speak up. Yeah, you can have clash, and we do it all the time. But isn't the essence of diversity the ability to bring together people and use the strengths that they have to contribute to the mission? That's the real essence of what we got to do. But do we always do that? Because, and those of you that are prior military, or those of you that are wearing uniforms now, what's the common military perception of civilians? What is it? Come on, we're just discussing here. Lazy, don't do anything. What else? Yeah, don't stand in the door at 4 o'clock, you'll get trampled, right? Right, what else? Yeah, yeah. So the military, but the common military perception across the board is, why do we need all these civilians? If we just had soldiers, we could do this. And for the first 17 years of my career, I was frankly part of the problem. I spent my early days in the 82nd Airborne Division, Vietnam, 44th Medical Brigade, and places like that. But even when I came back from Vietnam, I went to Fort Carson, Colorado, to the hospital there. And when I got back, we didn't have very many civilians in the hospital. You know why? We had 1.2 million soldiers on active duty in uniform. How many we got now? 486,000. Almost two-thirds less. Not quite. 60% less. Yeah, but we didn't have a lot of civilians, and frankly, I was part of the problem. And then I went to battalion command at Fort Bragg, and when I came out of battalion command, I went to Fort West Point as the DCA at the hospital. Guess what? My staff was 80% civilian. How long do you think it took even a farm boy from Ohio to figure out how important they were? Right? Not very long. And it was just an interesting situation for me. But then when I have this talk, especially if I have large crowds of military and civilian mixed, I love to watch the folks as I talk about it. Because when I talk to the military about their perception about civilians, what are the civilians, the pure civilians, doing? I watch the body language. What are they doing? What do you think? No, the lady behind you. Yeah, what are civilians doing? When I'm talking about the military, just saying, oh, why do we need all these civilians? Yeah, rolling their eyes, exactly. Oftentimes, I'm talking about the military perception of civilians, and the civilians are going, just like that, right? And so don't get too haughty about what's going on here, because we civilians have perceptions of the military as well, don't we? What are they? Yeah, lazy at times. What? And we're just being honest here. What else? Say again? Only want to better themselves? What else? The guy with the yellow. Yeah. No, the other guy next to you with it. So am I. I'm a hybrid too, but I recognize stuff. Yeah, they're cycling all the time. That's right. You can never find them. They're always on some tasker that increases your workload, et cetera, right? Yeah, I get it. It's really interesting. But the baseline is what the commander said. The baseline philosophy among most civilians about military is, I can wait you out. You'll be gone in 3 years, and I'll fix this when you leave. Right? And then there's always the hybrids again. We're, foot in both camps, hoping that the ankles are still stable, etc. It's just really interesting. They're all from different cultures. And yet, here we are, blessed to be part of the greatest mission any citizen can have, to defend their country. And we, in military medicine, have the most honorable part of that whole shooting match. Because we're blessed to do what we do, to take care of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and their families anywhere, anytime, oftentimes under circumstances nobody else would accept, and we do it the best in the world. What a blessing. So when we do that kind of stuff, and we start to think about the cultures we came from, it's an interesting perspective. I want to do a quick demo. I need a volunteer to work with me on a demo. Yeah, okay, come on up here. Who are you, young captain?
Mark Workman.
Okay, Mark Workman. That's pretty stable. So I'm going to have you sort of, well, I don't know if you can go behind that desk. This is your desk, okay? And if you like, I like that. I used to do this. I used to do this with my golf club membership card, but I don't do that anymore. I try to do this with something I don't care if it breaks, and that's my Washington, D.C. Metro card. But I can't find it now. So I'll use my empty Starbucks card. Okay. Because now I'm using my phone. It's a lot easier, right? Okay, so Mark, right?
Sir.
Okay, so you are now the MSA at Pick Your Clinic.
Dunham. That's a great place for MSAs to
Okay, but is that the only clinic you have in Dunham? It's like,
see.
yeah, but within Dunham, you only have the one MSA? One front desk? Okay. So I'm going to cheat then. I'm going to make him the MSA at the Internal Medicine Clinic at Brooke Army Medical Center. Okay? High speed, low drag. So I want you to watch what happens as I go through these scenarios. We're going to go through four scenarios, okay? And you're the MSA at the front desk. So hey, and Mark, yeah, my name's Gregg. Here's my ID card. I've got an appointment in 10 minutes. Everything okay?
Let me check our systems real quick.
Okay.
What's your date of birth?
9 November 46.
You have.
Don't spread that around, by the way.
All right, and may I see your 2569?
Okay, we got all that.
All right. All
We're
right.
good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, how'd he do?
Be outside corridors.
Okay. How'd he do? What was good, bad, or indifferent about it? Yeah. Well, next time I'll step out of the way so you can see. I'm sorry. That's my fault. What? What was the comment? Yeah. Okay. So well, he's a newbie. He hadn't been trained yet. Okay. So, but what do you do? What do you do that you did really well?
Fishing got you in and out.
Yeah, efficient. Got you in and out. Eye contact the whole time. Check with me. Made sure that I had, the ID card and my 24, whatever that other thing was, et cetera. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty good job, right? Okay. So that's scenario one. Scenario two. Ready? This place sucks. Your parking sucks. Your appointment system sucks. It took me 3 months to get this stupid appointment, and it better not be late.
Sir, if you have issues, we have the patient advocate just down the corner. He loves speaking to individuals like you.
What do you mean, individuals like me? What are you trying to say?
Go speak with him. He's seen 3 of you already.
Okay. This is a new one for me. By the way, it's not the most direct one I've had. Because if we traded positions, stand up. You're me. Okay. So the lady at Fort Bliss who was doing this with me, right there, like there, and so he's me. I'm the lady from Fort Bliss.
It's taken me so goddamn long to figure out.
You got a problem. How's that? Okay, so what did he do, good, bad, or indifferent?
I provided myself more work to do.
Yeah.
He's also our patient advocate.
All right, let's see. Well, that's how he knew to talk to 3 of us today already. I get it. Okay. How'd he do? It doesn't matter for the demo here how you do, because I'm going to ask you this question. How many of you have never been in scenario 2? My hand didn't go up either, right? How many of you can say you made the right decision every time you're in scenario 2? 100% of the time? Good for you. You're special. I see. Okay, then that's a whole different perspective, right? Okay, but you notice my hand didn't go up either. I made the same mistake with somebody not 6 weeks ago, somebody I really care about. It's hard. It's hard to deal with those kind of scenarios. Okay, so that's 2 out of 4. You good? Your knees okay?
I'm good, sir.
Okay, who? Yeah, well, yeah, I know, but I don't want him to be old like me and have no knees, you know what I mean? So hey, I'm Mark, my name's Gregg. I'm from the clinic next door, and my boss just gave me this paperwork. He told me you're the local expert on this kind of paperwork, and he gave me 15 minutes to get it done, or I'm going to get counseled or fired. Can you please help me?
Sure,
Okay.
I'm going to check and see how many people I have in line.
You got 5.
I got 5. Okay. We'll take a 15 minutes. Can I get you in just a moment?
Man, I only got 15 minutes, man.
Well, these individuals also have scheduled appointments, so if I could, I'd like to go and check them in. Then we'll help knock this out, and it shouldn't take long.
Okay. What do you do? Good, bad, or indifferent? What do you think? Good? Okay. Why? What was good about it? Okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, obviously. I mean, I've had every sort of response from from, hey, I know somebody else who knows this paperwork as well as I do. Let me get them to help you. All the way to, you're going to get fired. The range of things. It's a wide range. The real teaching point on this is that, oh, by the way, not all your customers come from outside your organization, right? And the customers that come from inside your organization deserve the same sort of consideration as anybody else, okay? But you have to prioritize, I get that. But helping the other folks is good. Okay, last scenario. Hey, Mark, how you doing? General Schmedlap. Just got my 4th star the other day.
Congratulations.
I'm really glad to be here. I got an appointment in 10 minutes. Everything okay?
Yes, sir. It looks. Yes, sir. You're checked in. Here's your check-in sheet, and you'll be outside corridor A. I'll let them know that you're here.
Awesome. Thank you. How did you do? No, he gave, well, yeah, okay. But how did he do with handling the patient? He did good. Very professional, very much so. The issue here, how many of you are in leadership positions? 5 or 6, okay. Let me ask a different question. How many of you have kids? One more time. How many of you are in leadership positions? Yeah, you see, the issue is not whether you're going to be a leader, but whether or not you lead in the environment in which you're challenged to lead, like this. Because even at Brooke Army Medical Center, the MSAs are GS5s or GS6s maybe at the most, okay? And 4-star general walks in, gives the ID card, and as soon as I hand over my ID card, even as a 4-star general, who's the leader? Yeah, not me, because I have given my opportunity to achieve success to the individual here. So everybody here is a leader on this team at some point in time. And don't ever think that you don't. Thank you very much, Mark, by the way. Applause for the demo. Don't ever think that you don't have impact. I'm going to tell you a quick story about having impact. I'd been in SES about a little less than a year at the time of the first Fort Hood shooting. And it's a very interesting piece of work. So the people at the AMEDD Center School, we conduct 350 plus or minus courses every year at the school. How many of those courses do we actually put hands on a patient? Lady with the red sweater, what do you think? Yeah. How many? Out of 350, what percentage do you think where we actually put hands on a patient? Half? So 175, okay? Anybody else? Penn State? 10? 1. One course actually puts hands on patients, and it's not what you think it'd be. Because you'd think it'd be 68 whiskey or something like that. It's dental. The dental techs are the only ones that put their hands on a patient because we bring the retirees in for the dental techs to train on how to clean teeth. They get free teeth cleaning and the kids get some training. You know, nice work. But with only the one course where they put hands on a patient, it's hard for the staff at the center and school to see what their outcome is. We don't get to see patients who come back and say, hey, I got better, like you guys do, et cetera, et cetera. But on the day of the first Fort Hood shooting, my boss was TDY, and so I got challenged to hold the memorial service between our two buildings down there on the plaza. And I have no idea what do you say under those circumstances? Because the shooter is one of our own, right? The shooter is a doctor. And what do you say to people? So the service was set for 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And at 5 minutes till 3, I'm in my office upstairs on the 3rd floor, still wondering, what am I going to say? And at that point in time, then Lieutenant General, later General Bob Cohn came on the TV, came on CNN. And he stood in front of the Welcome to Fort Hood sign. And he looked in the camera and he said this. That's a quote. He said, we lost 13 soldiers today, and we had 37 wounded. But the people that surrounded them were combat medics and combat lifesavers who reacted to their training. If they had not, we would have lost a lot more. And my talk was written. You know, on any given day, most of the people at the center of school never get to see impact. But on that day, the AMEDD Center and School had huge impact because every one of those combat medics was trained at the school, and every one of those combat lifesavers was trained using training that was built at our school. So don't ever doubt that you have impact. You will have impact. May not be right away, and you may not get to see it right away and all that kind of stuff, but you will have positive impact given the mission that you have. No question in my mind. Okay? So always trust that. So if we go back to the culture thing for a minute, go back to the culture stuff. If I am a military or even a prior military, and I say to my friends or to somebody else, or just generically, or even think it to myself maybe, you know, why do we need all these doggone civilians? If we just had more soldiers, we could do this. Is that firing between the aiming stakes, or is that friendly fire? What do you think? Too obvious, right? That's friendly fire. But if I'm a civilian and I think about the military and I think, don't worry, I'll just wait them out and I'll fix this when they leave. Friendly fire or between the aiming stakes? And don't, you know, I'm not trying to put guilt trips on anybody, none of that stuff. We've all done that. We've all done it. But isn't the mission bigger than that? That's what has to drive us. The mission has to drive us. And it's all about positive decision making. You saw the situations up here where even when the scenario sucked canal water, still had to make positive decision making. I mean, he didn't just react at first, right? Even when this thing came flying through, right? What did he do first? He sat back, and you could see the wheels turning. You could almost smell the smoke, right? It's all about positive decision making. I don't know if you've seen on our website, at the Civilian Corps website, I have what I call the wolf story. Have you heard the wolf story? The wolf story is about a Cherokee Indian chief who's talking to his grandson. He says, young brave, there are two wolves that fight inside of every person, the good wolf and the bad wolf. And you'll know the bad wolf by anger, greed, envy, all the things you might imagine. You'll also know the good wolf by kindness, caring, sharing, love, all the things you might imagine. But the kid's a teenager. Anybody got teenagers? Okay, or been a teenager? Come on. Yeah, so you know, it pushed back on everything, right? So the kid pushes back on his grandfather. He says, but grandfather, when the two wolves fight inside of you, which one wins? And the grandfather just smiled and he said, well, of course, it's the one you feed. Huh? It's the one you feed. And don't we know that? We know that. We push other people's buttons, other people push our buttons, and so on. It's all in who we're feeding and what we're feeding them, right? Happens all the time. It's human nature. The question is, do we have the intestinal fortitude and the moral courage to make the right decision even when the ID card comes flying at you, right? It's about customer service. My sister Francie is married to Michael Patrick Dolan, and Michael Patrick's a kid from Southern Ireland. And when Mike, when he gets a good story about Southern Ireland, he sends it to me. So he sends me this story about a priest in Southern Ireland who wakes up one morning and he finds a dead jackass in the front yard of the rectory. So he calls up the local police. He goes, hey lad, you know, I think I got the dead jackass here in the front yard. And the cop wants zero part of it. So he says, now, Father, wouldn't you be the man in charge of dead things and burials and all that? And the father thought for a minute. He said, well, lad, you know, I think I am. But I'm also responsible for notification and next of kin. Click. Which one's the real customer servant? Too easy to tell, right? And the same with leadership. You know leadership when you see it. We know what it looks like. You can ask around. I don't know, if we get 60 people here, you'd get 75 different leadership definitions, right? But you know it when you see it. When I was a brigade commander, I got selected to be the first U.S. commander to take forces into the Balkans in November of 1992. And we were on Plazo Air Base in Zagreb, Croatia with 7 different nations. We had Brits, Dutch, Finns, Swedes, Norwegian, French, and U.S. all together. And out of that whole group, we probably had the closest affinity to the Brits. Has there anybody here ever worked with the Brits before? Okay, they're really good. I mean, their soldiering's good, their medicine's good. They do a couple of other things really well, like swear. Yeah, but that was about third as far down as far I could tell. That was not their first. What else do they do really well? What'd you say? Drink? Yeah, that was one. They were second, though, to the Australians and followed closely by the Canadians. I'm not sure what it is about the British Empire, but that's the way it went. So drink was it. There was one thing I found that they could do better than drink. It's what I call one-upsmanship. You know what that is? Anything you can do, the Brits can do better, and they guarantee it, right? It's just the way it works. And so the British battalion commander was giving me some of that grief one day, and so I called him aside because you don't want to correct the commander in front of the troops, right? So I called him aside and said, hey, dude, what's the story with all this? Why are you giving me such a hard time? He just kept yapping. I said, let me tell you a story about you Brits. It's a story about 3 Brits that are riding together in a train. And the first guy starts off the conversation. He goes, Brigadier, married, 2 sons, both Oxford, both doctors. Second guy is not going to be outdone. Brigadier, married, 2 sons, both Cambridge, both lawyers. Third guy, not to be outdone. Sergeant Major, not married, 2 sons, both brigadiers. Which one's the real leader? Yeah, because sometimes leadership means being willing to and having to put your hind end on the line to do the right thing even when the scenario is not right. Okay? And it happens in civilian life, it happens in our military lives, it happens all the time. You know, you hear leadership speakers all the time talking about doing the hard right versus the easy wrong. There's some reality to that. It's conscious, positive decision making. That's why I do the demo. Because you can watch them make conscious decisions. Question is, are they positive or not, right? And I'm telling you, I've had the range. I've been using that scenario thing for about 3 years. And I use it not just with our medical people, but also to swear in new civilians. Because what it comes down to, in the bottom line, is what I call the so help me God clause in our contract. Because all the oaths are the same. You take the green suit oath for officers, and you take the green suit oath for non-commissioned officers. They're essentially the same, except for the piece in the middle of the non-commissioned officer or the enlisted oath that says, and obey the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulation in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, right? Everything else is the same. And the civilian oath is the same as the officer oath, except for the very opening phrase. And when I took my civilian oath, I was so stupid that when I went to become a government civilian 17 years ago, I didn't even know I had to take an oath. I found out when they said, raise your right hand. How bad is that? You know, I took my oath in the basement of the CPAC building at Fort Sam Houston, surrounded by old desks and partitions that were going to the dump. And a nice lady at GS5 gave me my oath. That's not quite right. But even under those circumstances, the oath brought me to tears, literally brought me to tears. Which is, first of all, you have to understand it's okay. My father was a deacon in the Catholic Church. And my dad used to tell me that the ability for a man to cry is a gift of the Holy Spirit. I just used to tell my dad I'm really, really gifted. That's the way it is. So, but you get the idea. It's the same. And because the oath that I took to become a civilian was the same as the oath I took to become an officer on the 4th of June, 1968, before many of you were born. And it all comes down to the same 4 words at the end. So help me God. You know, just it doesn't say so help me God if it's Tuesday. So help me God if I feel like it. So help me God if it's not in the too hard to do basket. It just says so help me God. And now with all that preparation, are you ready for this? With all that preparation, isn't that the same essence, the positive decision making, the so help me God clause in our contract, etc., that is going to be with us when we move to the DHA? Isn't it? The mission is the same. The care for people is the same. The eyeball-to-eyeball care for people is the same. You know? Okay, so what difference does it make? You know? Have you seen the ad on TV with the little girl who's looking right in the camera, and the mother is in the kitchen cleaning up stuff in the back, and the little girl goes, my mom washes everything she puts in the dishwasher before it goes in the dishwasher. So what does the dishwasher do? Right? I love that ad because we're the same way. We're the same way. In the bottom line, what does the DHA do? They're supposed to do the kind of things we do now. They're going to provide medical care. They're going to provide readiness opportunities. They're going to provide the necessary training, etc. It all has to be done. And the fact that that's going to be done that way, with that as the headquarters versus a MedCom as the headquarters, what's the really important part of all of that? I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Army medicine and I love the MedCom. I've been part of it since its very beginning. I'm so old, I was around when the MEDAC concept came on board. Okay, I can tell you, 1974. Right? But the issue is not that in the end state. Yeah, there's a lot of that goes on because there are concerns that have to be met about readiness and that sort of stuff. We still have to do all that. And we still have to find ways for the DHA to help us do that with the opportunities for people to train in our medical treatment facilities, et cetera, et cetera. But that's all in the law. If you read the law, that kind of thing is written into the law. So they have that responsibility. It's a long way to get to that one-line sentence, isn't it? But that's kind of the bottom line. I don't see things, again, I don't see things changing much at this level. I think there certainly will be some changes at the headquarters level. But you know, it also says in the law that the Army Surgeon General is responsible for staffing positions in the DHA, to include the general officer positions. So all the services will have the same thing there. Okay. So if I may, that's kind of the baseline for the stuff that moved to the DHA, and it's in the FY17 language, it's in the 19 language. The only thing it does is it changes the percentage of what parts of the MedCom are going to move. And some of those decisions are still being made. But all the MTFs go. The FY19 language added the Research and Materiel Command at Fort Detrick, along with the public health capability, because we don't have a public health command. Okay. There's a study it's going to be conducted over the next 240 days, because we already wasted 30 days of the time, or maybe not wasted, but used 30 days of the 270 they gave us to conclude the study are gone. So we've got it by 240 days from now. We have to provide a feasibility study on the movement of the AMEDD Center and School, potentially to the DHA. But those kinds of options and the kinds of courses of action to implement that are being considered now. That's what, remember early in the talk, I talked about the chief and the secretary, Chief Staff of the Army and the Secretary of the Army are being briefed on those courses of action. They got briefed yesterday. They've cut the courses of action down now, so we're down to maybe 3 different courses of action that I think you're going to see. And so when those decisions are made, we'll execute. But the baseline requirement, the baseline mission for those of us that are associated with military medicine is not going to change. Because there's no way you can change an eyeball-to-eyeball, one-on-one medical care with patients. It doesn't change. Okay. So that's a long talk for me to get to that sort of one-line ending, wasn't it? But that's kind of it. That's what it boils down to. And people are worried all the time. They're worried about, you know, what about my job? They're worried about what's going to happen to this organization. And at your level, I don't think either one of those are issues, at least up front. I would say, you know, what does the benefit look like in the future? I don't know what the answer to that is. It could be changed in the law. It could be changed by the DHA. And then would they do workforce shaping and so on to accommodate that? Possible. Don't see that that's going to happen certainly not very quickly. Just the transition of all the MTFs and all of the management to the DHA is probably, it has to be done by, if they include MRMC, it has to be done by 30 September of 22. So that's a long time from now, still. And then after that, you'll see what happens with the DHA as they do it. So anyhow, so I don't want to take you too far past the normal butt tolerance level. So let's, I've got about 10 minutes left. What is 4 o'clock your release time for your civilians? For most? Yeah,
We've
okay.
got some that'll be departing at 1600.
Okay, so there's about 10 minutes, almost 10 minutes left. Questions? Anything? Again, it doesn't have to be about what I talked about. It doesn't have to be about the DHA. It can be anything you want to talk about that has to do with military medicine or the Army or whatever. Gladly.
I was just going to ask what prompted the change from MedCom to DHA? DOH.
Yeah, it was written into the law. The FY17 law is what changed it. You know, what prompted the law to be written? Who knows? If you think about it, here's one old guy's philosophy or thought process. The thought process that I have is that in the end state, the Congress has looked at a number of times a joint medical command, and they want to get there eventually. If you go back in history, in 1946, one of the comments from Dwight Eisenhower after he came out of his Supreme Allied Commander hat was, if I had to do things over again, the one thing I would do is consolidate all my medical stuff. And that's kind of, that drove, wasn't the first mention of it, but you know, the idea of a joint medical command has come up 16 times since 1941. So it's not a new concept, okay? So in the FY17 law, what did they do? They gave control of the MTFs to the DHA. In the FY19 language, they moved other pieces of medical to the DHA. And they said 270 days to conduct a study about moving the center and school. And they said you have 270 days to conduct a study on the formation of a defense medical command that would replace the DHA. Okay? So and I'm an old guy, in my experience, those feasibility studies, feasibility's already been determined. This is a how-to study. Okay? That's just one man's opinion. I may be dead wrong, but so I think the desire to get to a joint medical command may be the driving force, and they're piecemealing it. It's coming. Whether or not it'll actually get there and so on, it's been fought off before. It's been battled over before. I mean, about 6 years ago, we were really close, and then it fell off the table again. So we'll see. But I think that's probably as close to the driver. I mean, I can't bring myself to believe that it was politically driven that much. You know, that it was just politically driven for the sake of it. I don't get that. Some people have that kind of theory. It's a conspiracy theory. I don't believe it. Okay, what else?
Mr. Stevens, appreciate your perspective because for the last 12, 13, 14, 15 months, there's been a lot of wargaming as to what will our organization look like under this new DHA structure, where will we fit in as a community-based health clinic. I think your perspective that our mission, which you spent a considerable amount of time talking about, will not change. It's patient care. It's those eyeballs to eyeballs as you convey. And that really, I think, sets it levels alleviates a lot of the concerns and a lot of the issues and even a lot of the wargaming as to where are we going to fall, what are we going to look like, who's going to be in charge of us. The bottom line is, and what you brought to the table here today was that our mission should not change.
Yeah, what difference do it make? It's like the dishwasher. What do it do, you know? What difference does it make? You guys, and it's interesting because you guys here at Dunham have a huge impact on the Army, much greater than you think, and certainly much greater than the size of your clinic would make you think. Why?
We've got the future leaders of not only the Army, but the Air
That's it.
Force, the Navy, the Marines being trained here.
The world. You have chiefs of staff from all over the world who come to this school every year. These are the guys and gals that are going to be the chiefs of staff of their armies when they go home. Okay? We do the same thing at the AMEDD Center School with the medical people. When we do the Medical Strategic Leader Program, the MSLP down at Fort Sam, when we do that program, we get, guess who? I think we've had something on the order of 30 some odd surgeon generals from around the world who have attended now. And every time we do that, we have a positive interaction with these guys, and we now have a friend for life, if you will. You want to talk about these, you know what the definition of soft power is? It's non-kinetic relationships that allow you to do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise in the world. Is there anything that you can think of that's a better representation of soft power than U.S. medical care? There is none. There is none. That's why I got to be the first U.S. commander taking forces into the Balkans. Because when President Clinton made the decision to commit U.S. forces, he said we're going to commit medical because everybody knows that the U.S. provides the best medical. And that will get us into the scenario without having to be kinetic. You don't have to throw lead down range to make that happen. Right? You had that same impact right here at Dunham every single day. And you don't know it. You don't stop to think about it. You're just like the people at the AMEDD Center School from the Fort Hood scenario. You will find out when, General, what's his name, whoever that is, comes back as a guest speaker at the War College. Because you treated him or his family or something like that here at Dunham. It is a huge, huge impact. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. There's some staff here that are more staff to staff rather than staff to patient and maybe considered non-essential. Would you see anything changing structurally?
No, I don't see anything changing for that either. If I take you back to scenario 3, where I do scenario 3 for a reason because the staff interactions are what supports medical care. I grew up as a medical logistician. And we get a lot of crap because the medical logisticians operate from either in the basement or out back, right? So we take a lot of grief for being loggies. Guess what? If the loggies don't perform, the place shuts down. The same is true for every other person. In one way or another, you have a negative impact on care if you don't perform. It's a team. It's an integrated team. You know, you can't play basketball with all centers because they're clumsy. They can't do it. You got to have guards and forwards and the whole bit, right? It's the same thing here, exactly. So I don't see that as an issue. What else?
Mr. Stevens, you've been our court chief for 9 years now. You've been a part of Army medicine for
5 more
over
months.
for over 50 years, which in itself I think deserves a round of applause.
Now, you know, it's very nice of you to say, but the truth of the matter is that the only reason I'm here is because of these folks. You know, those of us that have been senior leaders, right, Sergeant Major, you correct me if I'm wrong. I usually don't call civilians by their military rank, by the way. So, but in this case, it suits. But those of us that have been senior leaders in some form or another, we know that we rode to the top on the shoulders of the giants beneath us.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, that's true every time. That's anybody that tells you that's not true, I did it myself, is smoking the evidence locker.